Gunshots fired at an ABC-affiliated television station in Sacramento. Bullet holes seen in the window of the lobby. An employee of the Tegna-owned station telling NBC News someone pulled up, fired into the lobby, and drove off.
We're not going to stop looking for you. This is unacceptable behavior. It's not going to be tolerated in Sacramento.
Well, today we bring you yet another Gavin Newsom special coming from the party who claims they want to end political violence in America, but apparently also wants to make it easier to commit political violence. And to understand today's story, I want you to remember the fact that we have now seen repeated cases in California and many other blue states where violent criminals were allowed back out onto the streets in the name of criminal justice reform. They were released from jail, and then they go on to do what? Commit more violent crime and terrorize the community, because after all, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Well, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, and now repeated copycat attempts that we saw throughout the country this week, it seems that the state of California may have just potentially allowed a violent political terrorist back out onto the streets 24 hours before the Charlie Kirk Memorial in a neighboring state, following a very similar soft on crime doctrine that we've seen time and time again. I know you're probably asking, there's no way that's true. Did this really happen? No, it did. And there's a lot more questions that need to be raised. But in order to just introduce you to what we're talking about, you may have heard over the weekend about these headlines of an ABC news station that was getting shot up in the wake of the Jimmy Kimmel controversy. And today it was announced they apprehended the suspect and they figured out who it was. The aspect of this story that's not getting talked about a lot, though, is that he was released on a bail worth $200,000. Now, there's many questions about that. First of all, I want to know who paid his bail. Because when you read this guy's life and profile, I don't know where he found $200,000. Maybe he got a loan, but we'll get into that as well. But I further want to say, again, given the political temperature in this country, understanding what is going on and what this guy just did, for all we know, it could have been a potential political terror attack. According to the state of California, they're not even sure exactly what the motive is here or why he did it. They just said, yeah, you're safe to release on bail. No, let's not even do a threat assessment on you, apparently. So this is an insane story. I want to bring it to you from start to finish, right? Essentially what happened at ABC, how the guy got arrested, but also the shocking aspect of Gavin Newsom just let him out. And he's not even being charged with any type of, act of terror or hate crime or attempted murder even. It's just basically the charges essentially read negligent discharge of a firearm. But again, they don't know the motive. So it's an insane story, okay? So we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And that said, I want to first of all point out to you, before we even get into this story, that this is, of course, following a trend of other apparent political violence across the country. As a matter of fact, it was just earlier in the week, basically right after the Charlie Kirk assassination here, that two Pakistani jihadists, a father and son named Adib Nasir and Adil Justice Ahmed Nasir, were arrested in the state of Utah after trying to apparently plant a bomb underneath a Fox News van that was covering the Charlie Kirk assassination. Luckily, the bomb apparently did not go off correctly, but just take a listen so we understand, by the way, this is happening across the country, and then you can tell how the state of California isn't taking it all that seriously.
So last Friday in Salt Lake City, Utah, where Charlie Kirk was assassinated 2 days prior, two men, father and son, placed a bomb under a Fox News vehicle. The device had been lit, but it failed to detonate. According to authorities, it had the potential to cause a significant threat to public safety and could have led to mass casualties. And who were the perpetrators? Adib Nasir and Adil Nasir. And again, a father-son duo, because what people don't understand is jihadism is a family affair. When the police searched their house, they found additional materials, including 2 hoax weapons of mass destruction. The father was a Pakistani migrant to the U.S., where he raised his son to be radical in the U.S. Because why assimilate when you don't have to? Does anyone else find it interesting that they went after a Fox News vehicle? Because why not CNN or MSNBC? Oh, yeah, because they're pro-terrorism. And who's the group of people that are trying to stand in the way and make life harder for the terrorists to come into the country and ruin it? The conservatives. This is why we say the left is the party of terrorism, because the left is the party that the terrorists support.
Well, no, it actually goes further than that. It's not just the party the terrorists support. It's the party, in many cases, the terrorists are actually coming from to begin with, aka Tyler Robinson, and potentially this guy right here. But the reason I bring this up, the reason I would further mention that last night, RFK Jr.'s home had to be evacuated due to a bomb threat. We've seen repeated cases throughout the week. Just today, apparently a gunman was arrested outside the site for the Charlie Kirk Memorial tomorrow. It's now understood that might have been a misunderstanding. He was part of a security detail, but they didn't properly identify to law enforcement. Something went wrong there. But anyways, this is all just to communicate the fact that tensions are obviously high right now in America. People are scared. There kind of is a massive scare. It's something that needs to be obviously taken seriously. And we're going to contrast that with the apparently nonchalant attitude of California toward another one of these potential terrorist attacks. So that said, what do we see on, I believe, Friday, if I'm not mistaken here? Well, a ABC 10 television station had its lobby shot up in Sacramento, California, just moments after you saw a liberal protest outside screaming and crying about the supposed censorship of Jimmy Kimmel. Which, by the way, I would further point out is yet another example, because it's very interesting. The left always used to weaponize this in Trump 1, but this is like actually a case potentially as well, on top of the Tyler Robinson stuff, where left-wing misinformation genuinely drives violence, right? Because to say, oh, Jimmy Kimmel was just fired for free speech, it's illegal. No. He broke FCC guidelines. And by the way, as we'll point out even later in this video, there's much more to the story. That's not being reported on. It's the same case, by the way, with the blatant slander constantly of calling Charlie Kirk some Nazi fascist and then putting words into his mouth, putting beliefs in his mind that he never actually said, and then using that as a justification for his murder. So I want you to keep that in mind as well. But anyways, here is the story. So a Sacramento man suspected of shooting into the ABC 10 television station lobby, he fired 3 shots, has been released after posting bail on Saturday, according to the sheriff's office. He got arrested on, I believe it was Friday night. Didn't even spend, it would seem, guys, like 24 hours in jail before he was back out again. Needless to say, does anyone see something potentially wrong with that? Oh, it doesn't appear, guys, by the way, it might have been a like accidental discharge of a gun because he fired 3 times, Not sure if there's any gang activity in there that, might be accidental crossfire. Like none of this seems to be the case, right? So just keep that in mind. It does appear here that ABC was targeted for whatever intentional reason. And here is the story. So Annabelle Hernandez Santana, 64 years old, was arrested at the residence of Carson Drive in River Park, police said early on Saturday. So it was early Saturday, so basically he spent a couple of hours in jail, this guy. Again, the point here I'm making is what is going on with this, right? Police said investigators had linked him to a vehicle suspected in the drive-by shooting, which took place on Friday. He was booked into the jail around midnight on charges that include assault with a deadly weapon, shooting into an occupied building, and negligent discharge of a firearm. And then again, not understanding, hey, why did you do it? Because as I'm going to repeat, this guy might have been motivated by, wanting to commit political terrorism. You're just going to let him out within hours? And the police are now going to say, we can't establish a motive. If you can't establish a motive, why would you let him out of jail before you even know that? How do you have any guarantee this guy, especially understanding he's probably about to go to prison, who knows what he's going to do, right? If he's already driven by political extremism, won't go on to just commit further acts. I'm not saying he will. I'm not even saying I know the motive, but understanding it's a possibility, shouldn't you at least figure out the motive before you let him out of jail? Do I just not understand how criminal justice works, right? Is someone going to come in you don't understand how the system works. If that's how the system works, and especially how it works in California, that is seriously screwed up. Someone who likely may have just committed a terrorist attack should not be out on the streets within hours after committing it, okay? That's common sense here, guys. Anyways, bail was set at $200,000, jail records also showed. So they might have posted a high bail here, just thinking, oh, he's never going to pay it, which also begs the question to me, how did he pay this bail? Because as we're about to read here, basically, he kind of lived in an apartment complex. It doesn't appear this guy was at all particularly wealthy. Maybe he took out one of those like payday loan places that will pay the bail for you or something. But where I'm going with this is I have to seriously speculate whether some type of leftist network or wealthy leftists or a Soros type out there may have paid for this bail. I don't know that for sure. I'm just saying it is kind of like, where did you get the money from, dude? And again, I'm not saying that for sure, but that's exactly why, for instance, when we talk about RICO charges against the left-wing domestic terror network and putting together serious investigations to really get to the bottom of what is going on here, who is funding this extremism, who is funding this violence, could be another example, just possibly. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think I'm being way too far with that, or is it kind of genuinely suspicious? But anyways, apparently there was police activity at the River Park Apartments around 6:15 p.m. on Friday, which included several police cars and a SWAT team. And apparently this is the apartment complex. Now, it doesn't look terrible or anything, but I just bring up again, this guy was living in an apartment, so it's like $200,000. He just posted that, didn't take long. Kind of sketchy if you ask me. I don't know. But anyways, there you have the pictures of the shooting. Again, 3 shots fired into the lobby. Does not seem accidental by any means. Actually, if he's being charged with assault with a deadly weapon, then I would have to guess it is established it was intentional, right? Anyways, as you can see, 3 bullet holes were seen in the window of the building's lobby. A person was in the lobby at the time of the shooting, but not physically harmed, the station said. So that is, of course, attempted murder. And again, if there's a political motive, I don't see why you cannot charge this with some type of terrorism charge, because that's exactly what the definition of terrorism is, right? Politically or ideologically motivated violence is the definition of terrorism. So anyways, it's also worth noting too, before you think maybe something else happened here, maybe it was really random. Well, there were protests outside of the station on Thursday related to ABC's suspension of the Jimmy Kimmel show, but none were active at the time of the shooting. So 2 things worth noting. There was local attention on the Jimmy Kimmel stuff. I mean, it's Sacramento, California. What do you expect? But also, number 2, there weren't any protesters around. So clearly this was not some type of right-wing guy who was trying to target the protesters. No, he was trying to target ABC. And of course, why would you target ABC at this given time? Who knows? Maybe you could say, oh, ABC is liberal, so maybe it was far right. I mean, yes, that's technically possible. But you mean to tell me of all the left-wing outlets you could target, you go after the one that currently is in the ire of leftists, right? The leftists are mad over the Jimmy Kimmel firing. It seems to me we know what's going on, especially in California, right? Could be anything. But that's why I say, yes, it could be anything. I'm actually not rushing to conclusions here. I'm just saying it seems like there's an obvious reason. But either way, why would you let this guy out of jail before you know the answers to these questions? That's the point I'm really trying to make here and drive home, right? That is insane. That is stupid. That is dumb. Governor Gavin Newsom's office, by the way, said he had been briefed on the shooting. And here is his statement, right? He's making a big stand here. While no injuries have been reported, any act of violence toward journalists is an attack on our democracy itself and must be condemned in the strongest possible terms, the governor's office shared in a post on X. We stand with our reporters and staff who work every day to keep communities informed and safe. Sacramento police also thank the FBI for providing resources in its investigation. Okay, that's all great. But Gavin, if you really need to crack down on violence towards journalists, again, you probably know where I'm going with this, but maybe you should actually take the guy's threat seriously. Like, it's not that complicated. But anyways, there you have it. To me, just an utterly insane story. I don't know why more people are not talking about this aspect of it. It just seems crazy to me. But nonetheless, I would just lastly like to point out here in this video that at the very same time, ironically, all of this is happening, the whole Jimmy Kimmel hoax has essentially fallen apart. Right? Because the narrative from the left that I've been pushing back on since the beginning is this whole idea that, oh, well, it's an authoritarian crackdown, Jimmy Kimmel getting taken off the air. Because essentially what just happened was the FCC pressured and threatened a private company into acting, and it's an affront to free speech and all this stuff. And I've been pointing out for a very long time, no, the FCC threatening to simply enforce its existing rules that are mandated by federal law that was passed by Congress is in no way an authoritarian overreach, right? Like, nobody's above the law, right? It's saying you're going to enforce the rules, and no problem with that. But even then, that's not all there is to the story, actually. Because ever since, details have come out about like the actual nature of Jimmy Kimmel's show and how this was handled behind the scenes. And you'll see that while the FCC pressure to, again, not just arbitrarily make threats, but just simply enforce their rules was a factor, you'll also notice it wasn't the only thing here going on. As Tim Pool here points out, apparently Kimmel was only getting 129,000 viewers a night in the key demographic. 129,000. Guys, I think literally our last video on YouTube got more than that. Yeah, it did. 160. It's like, this is a mainline network show. I mean, keep in mind, you know, I have a very low production value. It's just myself. I don't have a team or anything. Jimmy Kimmel is using like an expensive broadcast studio. He has a live audience. He has a team of probably like 20, 30 people. He has the guests, all this production value, all the marketing budget, by the way, that like, you know, obviously I don't have and stuff like that. You add it all up, he's just only getting 129,000 viewers in the key demographic every single night. Which, by the way, when you compare monthly views, just to show you, right? I'm not even saying this to brag. I'm nobody. I really am. This is just to demonstrate to you how horrible Jimmy Kimmel's show is doing. We average more monthly views on this channel than Jimmy Kimmel's show on TV. Okay, the like late, prominent, mainline late night show on ABC. So needless to say, right, number one, it's obvious that ABC, as everyone was speculating, was looking for the excuse to get rid of Kimmel for a very long time now. And it seems likely that actually ABC just made the best decision for their business, which is, hey, so he's already kind of on the chopping block and then he causes problems, you're done, buddy, right? Of course, a lot of people have brought up this discussion of the FCC. And I don't deny that that played a factor. Again, I don't have a problem with that, because I don't think the FCC enforcing its existing rules is wrong. I think, for instance, making arbitrary threats towards Facebook, or the Biden administration basically saying, oh, we're going to throw fake indictments at you if you don't comply with us, whether that's obviously Donald Trump, but also even Eric Adams, right, the mayor of New York City, stuff like that, that is dangerous. That is authoritarianism. Saying, hey, you broke the rules, you need to follow them or we're going to enforce the rules, that's normal, okay? That's like, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But even then, again, as you'll kind of learn here in the behind-the-scenes story, well, there's more to it. So anyways, we also have a report here out of Fox that Kimmel, behind the scenes, and by the way, a big reason why he was taken off in the end, is that he reportedly planned to attack Trump supporters in his next monologue and defend the Kirk comments he made before Disney's action. In other words, they basically just wanted him to go out and make an apology for it, and he refused. ABC's Jimmy Kimmel reportedly refused to apologize for his disgusting remarks that landed him in hot water and planned to further tear into Donald Trump supporters, insisting they purposely twisted his words before he was taken off the air by Disney executives. So again, this contradicts the story that it was just about the FCC pressure campaign and nothing was going wrong before. No, the truth is there were many factors that went into it, and Kimmel essentially dug himself a deeper hole, refused to apologize, and Disney just said, this is bad for business, both in terms of viewership, because you suck, so you don't really have a lot of equity here, right? You're already on thin ice. And then we have this problem with the FCC because you broke the rules and you won't even apologize. It's a common sense decision, you know, which is why I say the hoax is debunked, because now you're learning more about the story, are you not? We, by the way, it's worth noting, initially heard reports, for instance, out of the Rolling Stone that like, oh, Disney executives didn't see anything wrong, but they just caved because of the FCC pressure, and this is what liberals kept on pushing. You read into the story, it turns out there's a lot more to it than that. It was more complicated, right?
Little Jimmy Kimmel thought he was bigger than Disney, bigger than Mickey Mouse. Charlie Kirk's body isn't even buried, and ABC affiliates are refusing to air his show. They're on the brink of an advertiser boycott, and this guy's not even in first place. And he says, let's go another round. So the boss said, take a breather, Jimmy. You're costing us a fortune and making us look like we don't have a conscience. After the biggest assassination since Martin Luther King, the face of your network can't lie about the shooting and pin it on MAGA. Sounds like an easy call to me. But the left thinks America as a country is finished.
This is a major moment in American history. This is a crossing of the Rubicon.
There may be no democracy to save a year from now. This is a red alert moment.
If you're not paying attention now and doing something about it, well, then you're going to have to sit down the rest of your life because democracy is being taken away.
Ribs want libs to do something about it. Well, they already shot Trump and killed Charlie. What does he have in mind? Charlie Kirk got murdered in cold blood for speaking his mind. But a comedian getting suspended is the turning point in American history?
Well, as of now, we seem to know exactly what the next step is. And that's that these radical, insane cultural revolutionaries are going to now go after not just the perceived enemies like Donald Trump, like Charlie Kirk and the Republicans, but also the perceived traitors, right? That being traditionally left-wing institutions like ABC, who in their eyes have turned their back. So apparently that's what's going to happen now, right? There's a massive boycott. The Democrats are egging it on. They're being intentionally dishonest and exaggeratory about what's actually happening. And hey, if there's actually violence against journalists, well, you know, against even ABC, well, you know, that it is what it is, according to the Democrats, essentially. So, you know, we've established what you're up against here and what we're dealing with, but there's just yet another example of it. And then, you know, Gavin Newsom will say, as usual, the Democrats will say, we condemn political violence, but let's also not really throw the book at him. You know, let's kind of go soft on the charges we're going to bring and let's let him out on bail. And again, who knows even who paid the bail, but that's fine. And I think everything's perfectly safe. Nothing to see here. And then let's bury the story, right? Not even going to talk about it by tomorrow, that there was, it would appear here, an attempted terrorist attack against ABC News because they were not adequately left-wing enough for these insane, deranged activist lunatics. Yep, that's exactly what's going on here. But anyways, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.